She's back. And no theme music. And he does. I'm Siobhan, and welcome back to season 2 of the Siobhan Speaks Social podcast, where we talk about race, religion, politics, and everything in between. I'm a former minister. I'm a current personal health and life coach for women doing nutrition, fitness, and everything in between. And as someone that has worked in ministry, someone that has worked in corporate America and food and service, being a waitress and literally having to wait on the elite, and then going into working for them in a different capacity, I've had an opportunity to see life from a variety of circumstances. Not only that, being a Black woman in predominantly white spaces my entire life has helped me, not even helped, has forced me to kind of grow up with this double mind where I'm constantly seeing the world through two different lenses: the lens of what is acceptable and the lens of what I naturally am and what comes naturally to me. And my goal with this podcast is so many different things. One, to help you come back to who you were, could have been, should have been, might have been, had your people not been colonized. And that sounds crazy, right? And your super ultra American self thinks of where you'd be if your ancestors weren't colonized. You may think of, a whole bunch of practices that just don't really seem fun, right? Like rain dances or living in huts or whatever. But I don't necessarily mean without the technology. I'm talking about before your beliefs and your customs and traditions were taken and told they were demonic so that you could all be group thought into one religion so that you're easily controlled. That one key theme is going to bleed into everything that I talk about. I talk a lot about how I can't stand things that begin with C's, mainly corporation, corruption, capitalism, the church, just stuff like that. I didn't make the rules. A lot of these things begin with C's, and I think the mere alliteration of them all speaks spiritual and universal volumes. Another important theme and or an extension of that is going to be the dismantling of white supremacy. So we talk a lot about decolonization, which has to do with bringing down all the structures that are bastard children of white supremacy, including the patriarchy and capitalism. But we also are going to spend a big deal talking about deconstruction, because those two went hand in hand. Colonization and the conversion of the whole world to Christianity, again, all these C's, these things, like they are all intertwined in a way that you have to you can't deconstruct one without the other. When people start to deconstruct their faith, they start to become less subscribe to this idea that says stuff like capitalism and communism is evil. Are the people that are practicing them, have they abused them? Yes. The same could be said about Christianity, that this system or this religion or this structure in and of itself isn't harmful, depending on who you ask, but in the wrong hands, it could be detrimental. So my goal is to help those who are either just starting that path and to help you not feel crazy, but also for those who are already on that path, and just me giving you my insight as someone that has worked and been in the trenches at a mega church and went to school and studied the scriptures so that I could do it in a vocational manner. Someone who can talk to you about issues when it comes to surviving domestic violence, surviving sexual assault. And one of the things that I'm super excited, I'm happy that it's happening, is that women like myself who have been assaulted multiple times, we're able to talk about just how frequent this occurrence is. And when I say it's time, from the woman who came forward to share her story about how her husband drugged her up and let 50 men sleep with her, to the allegations, the stories about what President Trump has done to women, the defamation suits that he's trying to countersue them on, even though he on camera said I raped them. Like, all of these things are coming to the surface. And if you've been following me for a while, I won't stop talking about Pluto being an Aquarius, not just because I'm an Aquarius, but because this time is historically known to be a collective shift, and some of the old systems and ways of being are going to have to come down, because there'll be revolutions, there'll be awakenings, and there's going to be a lot of people looking for answers. And even though I did not become a pastor, praise God, because I can talk like this and I can see things through a lens that isn't just a Christian lens, there's going to be a lot of people looking for leadership that isn't rooted in the very thing they're trying to get away from. There's going to be a lot of people that are looking for wisdom that isn't attached to an agenda. The only agenda I have is that I want people to wake up and remember who they are. And if you want to play games with me, that's biblical. You need to know who I formed you before you, like, you can use your own biblical verse. Like, there's nothing wrong with people learning who they are. And then my other thing is just reconciliation. I use this example in one of my videos, and it's what they taught me as a future pastor, that the ministry of Christ was this, like, reconciliation between man and God, up and down, and then man and man. I thought it was pretty cute. Excuse me. There's going to be times where I say things that you don't think are very reconciliatory, and that's on you to sit with. Because, again, one, I'm not God, so my words are not end all be all. But hopefully, my words will shine a light into the dark areas of your mind and in your soul so that you can deal with some of those things that I've said that have triggered you and help you realize why. But most importantly, these podcasts, these talks, are to help equip you, right? It's a resource for those who are just waking up. It's a soundboard and a community for people who feel like they're alone. But most importantly, I want to equip you with some of the answers to give to your friends, to your family, and people that you're going up against, because most people are pretty good apologists. They're not intellectuals, they're not critical thinkers, and they won't be able to give you any wisdom of their own, but they're really good apologists, meaning they know the right answers, they know the right rhetoric, they know how to repeat it, and they repeat it and have heard it so much that they're confident in it. And that's the role that Charlie Kirk played. And a lot of our current indoctrination is people that repeated things confidently. Here's a good example. Your vice president got on somebody's podcast show, something, and literally twisted his lips up to say that Charlie Kirk did not say some of the words that he said when he literally said them. Like, there's recordings going around where he said these things. But the confidence in which he said it would lead you to believe that, hey, that wasn't true. And this is what we're up against. A bunch of people who don't think twice and just repeat what they heard and will repeat it confidently so that when you do give them pushback, they don't even, a lot of times they won't know what to say. And that's why I'm here, because I want to give you something to push back with, because they say it so confidently that it makes you second guess yourself and it makes you think, well, shit. I want to give you some of my skills that I learned as a life coach, and it's or just a fitness coach, or just a coach at all, someone that pulls people to the next level. It's just asking questions. When they say stats, you don't have to get mad. You don't have to let it trigger you. Like, blacks are 13% of the population but commit half the crimes. If it sounds weird or wrong, it probably is. So you'd be like, really? Let's look that up together. Just challenging them. But you won't feel confident in challenging them if you're not sure that you are right. And I'm not here to make this a right versus left or a right versus wrong thing. I'm here to give you the same wealth of knowledge to match the level of lies that they have been putting out on the other side, essentially. But anywho, so what's been going on the news that has made me feel like I needed to jump back in? I went on a weekend trip, or I took a 2 day, well, actually like a 3 day trip, well, 2 night, 3 days, to the beach just to get away and relax and not do anything or do everything. Sometimes I'll work, sometimes I'll read, sometimes I'll just sit there and do nothing. Well, this time I batched a whole bunch of responses and videos and think pieces on the whole Charlie Kirk situation, and you can check them out across my Facebook platforms, Threads, but mainly Instagram and Facebook is where I took to make posts, and TikTok as well. What it revealed for me more than anything, it was like the unveiling of, it was like when Trump was elected part two, like the veil was torn, except now there's so many more people, because Trump, it's like, people could hide behind, oh, okay, well, it was just policies, or I just, da da da. But with someone that speaks like this, I mean, they both say pretty horrible things. Like, there's no, I don't even know which one is worse. But for whatever reason, people could pretend that Charlie Kirk was one of them because he simply said he was a Christian. And I think that one, this is why it was time, because now we get to have that serious discussion with Christians about what it actually means to be a Christian. Because all this time they have spent their time pointing fingers at everybody who drinks, or some denominations, you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to cuss, you're not allowed to listen to this type of music, you're not allowed to, there's so many things that everyone's not allowed to do, and we're all wrong for doing them. They have these men that they want us all to believe are Christians, and it's like, but they're not doing the things that Christians do. So why are you holding me, who doesn't even practice your same faith and religion, to a higher standard than these men that you are saying are men of God? And it made me think of how, I posted about this, it made me think about how it was in church, where I came off, we're going to say the streets, right? Wasn't born and raised in church, didn't have the church family, PK, whatever. My mom became a pastor later on in life. And I'm one of the street kids, one of the people that they do the services for to get saved and transform their life. And I came from being a promiscuous teenager, juvenile delinquent. I was already smoking cigarettes as a teenager, like all these horrible things. So when I came to church, I have to work twice as hard to prove to people that I'm sanctified, that I'm redeemed, and that I am new. Also for myself, but I got to prove this to these people, right? Mind you, all the while, because I came off the streets and people know my past, I have to prove all these things. However, the kids that are born into it or have been at the school their whole life or whatever, they can live their life however they want to. They can watch all the shows that I was told I wasn't supposed to watch. They can say the curse words and nobody's looking. They can think and say the racist thoughts. They can go get Coke when they only ask for a water cup. That's stealing and lying. They can do all the things that I'm literally walking on eggshells and carefully making sure that I don't do so that I can be seen as a Christian. Meanwhile, they're not doing those things and they still get the label of Christian. Why? Because they dress nice, because they look nice, because of the family they're a part of. You see what I'm saying? And so we need to have that serious conversation. And I'm begging all of the people that are still in church, that are literally like in there, I need y'all to stand on business and say something. And what's ironic to me is that I had been talking about this for years. When I was still in church, when I was still in ministry, I would bring these sort of things to the minister's attention. Like, hey guys, you tend to favor one demographic more than the other. You don't listen to us when we say we're hurting about Trayvon Martin. You don't listen to us when we say, hey, we don't want to vote this way because it's actually going to hurt our pockets when you take away our Medicaid and our food stamps. And again, I talked about this on TikTok. I was like, I was a tither. I tithe 10%, which means I'm giving 10% to the church before taxes. So I look at that number of money, right? The amount of money that I don't even get because Uncle Sam didn't already scooped it in, but I'm going to tithe 10%. I'm going to give the church 10% off of that number. And if you do this every paycheck, every month, you've given a lot of money to the church. And so when they would tell us stuff like, you can't vote for that Democrat because they're not a Christian, they're not pro-life, we would hand out pamphlets and everything. They wouldn't have any nuance. It would just say basically conservative, Christian, Democrat, might as well have said demon. And they would tell us that we couldn't vote for those Democrats who were pushing these government assistance programs because we were just voting to line our pockets. They told the poorest people in the church that they were voting to line their pockets and not the other way around. And we believed, I didn't believe them. I still voted. I would never vote conservative. I was like, fuck that. But I even knew back then that something wasn't right. And I didn't even know that much about politics. So to look today and see the chokehold that the church has so many people on because it has taught people, religion has taught people not to trust themselves, that you were born inherently evil and that you have to listen to the pastor or to the person in charge because they know what's best and they're closest to God, and don't forget they're a Christian. Decades, centuries, generations of people believing this without thinking twice. Now they don't have critical thinking. Now they're not in touch with their intuition. Now they don't know what the fuck to do. And so when people like me, who they've seen be for God one moment in church and now they're not, like, they're just confused. And is this not biblical? Like, isn't this in Revelation that in the end times there'd be confusion? And make no mistake, when I say end times, I don't mean the end of humanity. First of all, if it was the end of humanity on Earth, that doesn't mean it's the end times. There are whole universes and galaxies outside of us. But when they say the end times, I often think of the end of this time, this period, the world. It could have meant the end of the Christian reign and empire. I dive deep into this in a Substack article where I'm talking about how, and the show Chaos on Netflix, Jeff Goldblum, the whole theme of that show is that the gods lose power when the people stop believing in them. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe in all of the different religions because they're all representations of God. If a man was made in God's image, if a woman was made in God's image, and if we're going to use the stories of the Bible as allegories or illustrations of historical events in mankind, I always see the Tower of Bible as every different group of people tried to get as close to God as they could, and God confused their languages so that they couldn't continue to get that close to God, which always pissed me off because I was like, why would you do that? You're the reason why there's racism. Like, why would God do that? And now it just kind of, it's more symbolic of the fact that we won't be able to work together unless we're speaking the same language. And so when it comes to religion and controlling communities, societies, you can't work together if you're not speaking the same language. And so that's why religion is so prominent. That's why this version of Christianity has needed so much belief for so long. I like to think of it in concept of, or in relation to science and energy, right? Energy is a really powerful, potent thing, and human belief is so energetically potent. And if you got people all around the world all believing the same thing, not only is that energy, collective energy force field strong as fuck, but the belief itself is really strong. That's why when Obama was getting when he was campaigning, you could feel the happiness in the air. It's the same thing with religion. You get the people worked up. It is a collective workup. And if you can keep this thing going for centuries, then it is so much easier to steer the people. The problem with Democrats, progressives, leftists, liberals, whatever, is that they don't all speak the same language. I say they because, well, I guess I'm part of that, but I don't really care about the politics of it. I'm just not conservative. But we don't all speak the same language. So it's very hard for us to all move as one. It's very hard for us to collectively get anything done. And it's also very hard for us to control. Not every, like, we are a non conforming group of people, which has pros and cons. But the biggest con is that we haven't been able to unite to get anything done because we don't all speak the same language. And right now, in light of Charlie Kirk's death, everyone on the right is speaking the same language. We've lost an important figure. We've lost our headpiece and our voice. This could be a great time for the church to rebrand. This could be a great time for the real men and women of God to speak up and do what I accused my pastors of not being able to do in the past before I left, which is stand up for truth and actually have faith that if you're standing on truth and standing on business, that you'll be vindicated. Have the faith that if you speak out that God's got you, and even if some of your biggest donors leave, that have faith that God's going to provide for you, or at the very least that you manage your church funds so good up until this point that you'll be okay if you actually speak the truth. Anywho, for the next few episodes, I'm going to be addressing specific groups of people. My white friends who have been blocked, removed, or we don't talk, and you can see my post and you know what it is, and then you all can use what I would say to those friends on yours. The next group of people would be like the ultra real life MAGA. So you're a step further than just Charlie Kirk sympathizers. Like you're full blown MAGA, and like we probably have not been able to talk or haven't spoken in years. I have words for you guys. And then my last group of people I'm going to talk to are my Black conservatives, Black Christians, Black Republicans. Even though I never really was considered a conservative or a Republican, I was definitely a Black Christian and in those spaces. And I just have maybe some warnings, or maybe even more for those who are where I was back in 2017, a little bit confused, a little bit lost, and not really sure which way to go. I think that's who I'll talk to. Because remember, our goal is not to wake up those who are not ready to be awakened, right? They'll be mad. But when they wake up, when the time is right, they'll be able to listen and to hear you. So hopefully, these next few episodes will give you some content and some context to be able to have those conversations with them when they are ready to wake up. Till next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode if you got value. If you want to continue to support the work so that your girl can continue to speak freely, consider buying me a coffee, subscribing to the channel, or supporting the show directly through Zelle. Everything's in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.